Hey Sun Devil fans, Sandy Charles here for DevilsDigest.com, and I'm joined by our publisher, Hode Rubino. We are continuing our coverage of the 2018 season, talking about ASU's next game, a home matchup against Oregon State this Saturday. So Hode, it may make sense to call your first game on a calendar a no-win game, but being that ASU is a 21-point favorite for this Saturday, does this qualify them?
Yeah, I think it does qualify as a no-win game because basically, like I said, when you're such a heavy favorite coming in, any score less than 3-4 touchdown wins would be considered disappointment. And obviously, if you won by that much of a margin, then how much are you really going to learn about Arizona State? Now, don't get me wrong. This team is desperate for a win. It seems like when you're on a two-game losing streak, it seems like your last win was like about 10,000 years ago. So I think that there's definitely focus and not a lot of sense of complacency or overlooking Oregon State. And there's some valid reasons, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, why you really can't overlook the Beavers altogether. And I think Herm Edwards had a great quote earlier in the week. He said, if you're going to disrespect the game is going to disrespect you back. And I feel that for a team that needs a win so bad, I can't see Arizona State really overlooking this opponent at all. But again, if Arizona State is going to win by a very comfortable margin, which I expect them to, then I don't think you can say, okay, great, the ASU defense is back or the ASU offense is back. You basically just really just took care of business in a manner that everybody expected it to be. So in that sense, yes, I would say that the game against Oregon State is your quote-unquote no-win game.
Now, even with back-to-back losses, ASU's defense has played respectively well. How does Oregon State's offense compare to their recent opponents?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about the Oregon State offense is that their head coach, Jonathan Smith, is a Chris Peterson disciple. So basically what you saw from Washington last week, I think you see a lot of elements in the Oregon State offense this week. Obviously, the Beavers have nowhere the caliber of players as the Huskies, but I think some of the concepts are definitely going to be similar, and I think that can help the Arizona State defense. But like I said, some of the things that really might surprise you about Oregon State, they're ranked number 5 in the Pac-12 in both passing and rushing. They can move the ball. They can actually put up some points on the board. The big question is which Oregon State team we're going to see. I mean, they lost to Nevada a couple weeks ago, I believe 37-35. So, granted, not a great job by the defense, but the offense definitely was able to put up points. But last week at home against Arizona, they only put up 14 points in a 35-14 loss. So you wonder, okay, does this offense maybe coming down to earth a little, or just having some difficulties that weren't there the first 3 weeks of the season? That's going to be really interesting to see. What happens over there. I think defensive coordinator Danny Gonzalez had a very interesting quote. He said that obviously when they played San Diego State and Washington, and Chris Peterson at Boise State obviously faced San Diego State many times before, they saw that San Diego State 3-3-5 scheme many times before. I mean, obviously San Diego State running it even to this date. So it was really hard to surprise those opposing offenses the last 2 weeks. And case in point, I mean, when they played Michigan State 3 weeks ago, I know it seems like a million years ago, but Michigan State never saw that defense in person on game day, and that's why Arizona State was really able to have a lot of success and limit them to 13 points. So I think that theory will be put to the test this week against Oregon State, but I think that is definitely some validity to that not only you played two formidable teams the last 2 weeks, that you also play teams that are very familiar with what you're trying to do on defense. And this is really a defense that is so exotic and so complex that really needs to have that element of surprise to succeed. So that's something that Oregon State is going to have to contend with more than the previous 2 opponents that Arizona State had.
Okay, now looking at ASU's offense, through the wins and the losses, we have yet to see a balanced attack from them. Will this Oregon State defense allow for them to be well balanced?
Well, I'll tell you what, Sandy. First of all, I mean, this offense needs to explode in this game, because if it doesn't happen this week, I don't know when it will happen the rest of the year. You look at Oregon State and their statistics on defense. They're bad against the run. They're bad against the pass. They give up 43.5 points per game. They give up 540 yards per game. again, if it's not going to happen this week for the Arizona State offense to really light up the scoreboard, you just kind of wonder when such an opportunity will present itself the rest of the year. But I mean, aside from just really exploding and maybe taking a lot of frustrations from the last few weeks, yes, you would like to see that well-balanced attack against Arizona State. And you and I talked about it so many times that at least the makeup of this team is that they can't just be a team that's going to be 3 yards and the clouds of dust and not with not a lot of great passing game, or be the opposite, your classic air raid team that doesn't really care to run the ball that much. And they just can't have either of those scenarios and still be successful, and be more than just average. So yes, for Arizona State, it's definitely important to have a game where both the passing game and the running game are clicking on all cylinders, and also doing that on the same day. It's definitely encouraging to see what the ground attack has done for the Sun Devils, because the last few weeks before Washington was a little disappointing. And honestly, when we talked about the Washington game, both pregame and postgame, that was a team that really gave up a lot of yards on the ground to begin with. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be encouraged with what you saw from Arizona State as far as the running game, but that's definitely a building block. Now, obviously, in the same vein, if I wasn't a big surprise to see Arizona State really struggle against an excellent Washington secondary. But again, the defense that they're going to see this week is way different, not only from Washington, but even from San Diego State the week before. And I fully expect Arizona State offense to put a lot of points on the board, but like I said, also to be well balanced. I think they have an excellent opportunity this Saturday. And again, I don't know when they're going to have such a great opportunity later on.
Now, when you look at this and analyze all aspects of Saturday's game, is there any reason to think ASU cannot walk away with a convincing win?
Yeah, there really isn't. Again, I know this team is really desperate for a win. And I said earlier in the week, if you need to break a 2-game skid, you need to feel good about yourself on both sides of the ball. Oregon State is exactly what the doctor had ordered, especially at home over here in Tempe. I think the only thing Arizona State really has to guard from is just a mental letdown, and this is where the veteran leadership has to step in and really make sure that all the key players that happen to be young and or inexperienced are really not overlooking this opponent. That's really the only thing I can see really holding back from Arizona State from having a very convincing win. Again, I mean, you look at the stat sheet, and just everything is really favoring Arizona State. You look at the talent for both teams, and again, everything is in the Sun Devils' favor. So I expect Arizona State to break the 2-game losing skid, get that first Pac-12 win, 48-17.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hode. Keep it locked in at DevilsDigest.com for all of our in-game and post-game coverage this weekend, and of course throughout the entire 2018 season. For Hode Rubino, I'm Sandy Charles. We will see you Saturday.